Good morning. I'm going to have a really hard time being confined to the stool. So I'm going to start by standing, and then I promise I'll try to sit down. When I was probably 19 years old, I was very sure that women could not teach or, shouldn't really even speak at all in church. And Dave Satterley was running a group called Abide for young adults. And he came to me and he said, I really feel like you should teach at our group. And I was like, I can't do that, Dave. And he's like, yes, you can. You should do it. And I prayed about it. And the scripture that the Lord led me to was Isaiah 58. It's a scripture that really has impacted my life over many, many years. And I want to share it with you right now. It starts off really rough because God's kind of going after the Israelites, and he's like, you keep on acting like you care all about what I want, but your actions, your words are very different than your actions. And so I'm just going to dive in here, starting at verse 2. It says, for day after day they seek me out. They seem eager to know my ways, as if they were a nation that does what is right and has not forsaken the commands of its God. They ask me for just decisions and seem eager for God to come near them. Why have we fasted, they say, and have not seen it? Why have we humbled ourselves and you have not noticed? Yet on the day of your fasting, you do as you please and you exploit all the workers. Your fasting ends in quarreling and strife and in striking each other with wicked fists. You cannot fast as you do today and expect your voice to be heard on high. And then it continues a little bit later. Is not the kind of fasting I have chosen to loose the chains of injustice and to untie the cord of the yoke, to set the oppressed free and break every yoke. And as I continue, I just want you guys to see here the heart of God, how his heart just longs for people in need, and he longs for his people to be the answer and the solution. Is it not to share your food with the hungry and to provide the poor wanderer with shelter? When you see the naked, to clothe them, to not turn away from your own flesh and blood. Then your light will break forth like the dawn, and your healing will quickly appear. Then your righteousness will go before you, and the glory of the Lord will be your rear guard. Then you will call, and the Lord will answer. You will cry for help, and he will say, here am I. If you do away with the yoke of oppression, with the pointing of finger and malicious talk, and if you spend yourself on behalf of the hungry and satisfy the needs of the oppressed, then your light will rise in the darkness, and your night will become like the noonday. The Lord will guide you always. He will satisfy your needs in the sun-scorched land and will strengthen your frame. Do you guys hear everything he's saying? If you'll do these things, all of the blessing that comes. You will be like we will be like a well-watered garden, like a spring whose waters never fail. Your people will rebuild the ancient ruins and will raise up the age-old foundations. You will be called repairer of broken walls, restorer of streets with dwellings. And we just felt like it was important for us to set the stage today of, it's great to go out and to do nice things and to help people and all of that. But if our heart is not the heart of God, that we want to constantly be seeking God, what is your heart? What do you say about the people that you're leading us to? But it's so incredible to see how he says, if you will do these things, look at the blessing and the abundance that I'll pour out. Look at the healing that will come to you. And I think so often we can kind of be like, you know what? Those people go and do that stuff, like those people go do that and I'll just be fine. But the truth is God's calling all of us. And whether you can physically go, there are always things you can do here. There are things that if you're called to go to South Africa next year with us, that's great. If you're called to just go to your neighbor, that's great. If you're called to just give $1, that's great. We'll talk more about that in a minute. But I just think it's so important for us to see, starting off, what is God's heart? What is God's heart towards these people that he loves more than we can possibly imagine?
So good. I love it because there's so much in that verse that we talked about this morning and didn't even realize. So that's such an amazing confirmation just about God breaking chains. And the fact that chains look a lot different, for different people. But the fact that he's been breaking chains and he is breaking chains, not only for the kids over there, but for people in this room as well. So yeah, God, we just invite you to break any chains this morning. Anybody who's bound up in whatever, Lord, we just say break those chains in Jesus' name. So I guess my story with this begins in 2007. Love was founded, that Lily the Valley Endeavor, the actual organization that we do fundraising and travel with, was founded in 2004 by Tirsha's mom, Sharon. And many of you know this story, but some of you don't. So I'm just going to share it really quick. Really condensed version. Sharon was woken in the middle of the night by God, who said, call the carpenters. And the carpenters were actually Dave and Sharon's youth leaders they were their youth leaders back in the day. And she just called them to catch up. And she said, well, what are you doing? And he began to tell her about this orphanage that he was helping with. He's a doctor, and he was volunteering his time at this orphanage that was actually a hospice for babies. Lily the Valley started out as a place where little babies would go and they would keep them comfortable while they pass. And this was back in 2004. Sharon answered the call and she started Lily the Valley Endeavor. And since then, these kids have been thriving. It's actually really, really amazing. I jumped into the story in 2007 where my friend Andrew, he was going on a missions trip with Tirsha and two other girls, and he begged me to go. He's like, please come with me. I don't want to be the only guide. I'm like, I'm not interested in going to Africa. I have no interest. I probably will never have any interest in going to Africa. But he kept bothering me until I finally said yes. So then I reluctantly fundraised and made it over there, and my life was changed forever. My perspective shifted. It changed my life, not only seeing these kids and experiencing it firsthand. Also, I met my wife there, which was a pretty good deal. But my
pretty
life,
good.
Yeah, pretty good. It changed my life forever. So going there, the needs, just from 2007 to now, we've watched the needs change over the years. As children, they started getting good food and started getting ARVs, and they started surviving and they started thriving. Then they needed to think of what do we do about schooling? And then they thought, now kids are actually graduating out of the orphanage. Now what do we need? How do we set them up to where they could actually, support themselves and thrive in life? So things have the challenges, I don't like to say problems, the challenges have changed over the years, and we've actually stepped up to meet these challenges. And we'll talk about the new ones at the end, but there's some huge differences between here and Africa, because I know a lot of people could be like, well, we have a lot of people in need here. Yes, we do. Even more now, today, than even probably 2 years ago. But here's the deal. In South Africa and in Zimbabwe, where we actually do our work, if they don't receive our support, they don't get support. Bottom line. There's a lot of help we could get here. There's a lot of family and friends. I think there's a lot of huge giving spirit here. I think that people here are actually very generous. Not saying that people in South Africa aren't, but I think that sometimes when you walk by the same thing every single day, you become blinded to it. So if the support doesn't show up for them, the support doesn't show up. Yeah. Yeah, that was my difference.
One of the funny things, actually, hold on, Tammy, can you show the next picture, I think? So that's a good picture. One of the funny things I had heard on the trip was, so Cody loves biltong.
I do.
And Tirsha apparently showed him biltong, and I hear that's when you won his heart.
They're like, what's biltong?
Biltong is dried. Biltong is dried meat, and he had ended up the first time he came. He had to stay behind for an extra day to get there. Something wrong with his passport, and so I had to pick him up from the airport. We stayed at my grandparents instead of at the children's village that first night because his flight got in late. I don't know why we're telling this story, but it's happening. And I woke him up. I was like, "Do you want some biltong?" And he was like, "My wife, I love you."
Now there's a child.
Yes.
Nice. There you go.
It's how you win Cody's heart, dried meat.
Yes.
It's great.
It's good. It's good.
Dread beef.
But it's way better. I love it. So a lot of you guys have heard that while we were out there, we shot a documentary. So that's the team we went with. So you recognize us 5 up there, and then the 3 that are also in the picture. Right next to me, Andrew Christopher, Grant Seat in the blue sweater, and then Sam Hicks in the orange shirt. I just want to honor them real quick. They're such awesome people.
Yeah.
I think Andrew's watching online, so hello, Andrew. But they're awesome, and so pretty much I have a quick little backstory of how the documentary happened. It's so supernatural how it came about. So pretty much one of our Love USA board members, I think, met with you too, or some people. Yeah, and she had suggested that the last promo video we had was how many years ago was that? 15 years ago. And Dad, did you help film that too? Yeah. So my dad and a couple other people helped film that, and my mom voiced it over, right? Yes. I love it. But pretty much 15 years ago, and there's a lot's changed since then. As Cody just said, the needs have changed as well. And so the board member suggested doing a new promo video. And so then Andrew Garcia, pastor just right down Erbes, did a cold call to the Oaks Film Department. And no one answered at first, or he left a message at first. And then Andrew Christopher, he's the director of the film department, which is awesome. He called back, and he was like, I'm actually going to be in Africa this summer. Because every year he picks a place to go and goes there, and it's awesome. But this year it happened to line up where he was doing a 30-day, he just got back recently, but a 30-day trip all around Africa. And so then pretty much he was like, I'm going to bring 2 of my seniors, because this year we're also studying documentaries. So all of it just lined up really well. So Sam and Grant are his seniors. So he brought them. And so we filmed a lot. So I think the next slide is one of the interviews. But it was super cool seeing that what Sharon, my grandma, had started. It's super cool seeing how 18 years ago it got started and where it is now. And it was also very honoring that me, Josh, and Jaden got to be a part of the documentary as well as our grandchildren, because that was super cool. And it was Jaden's first time going out there as a young adult. So that was super cool. And I remember one of the things I really remember from the first promo video was a lot of kids saying there is a way, and there is a way to make a difference. A lot of people might not know that way at first, but there is a way to make that difference. So this documentary plays a huge part in making that difference, raising awareness, and displaying the heart of the villages, which is ultimately the heart of the Father. So, and 2 of the people, so she's in the interview right there, but Tammy Wright. So Graham and Tammy are the village directors for both Icatello and now Lily. They're such awesome people, and their hearts are so genuine, nourishing, and loving. And that just displays in how they talk to the kids, how they talk to the volunteers, how they talk to all of them. And their interviews were so impactful, and their hearts are so evident through the words they speak. So I'm excited for you guys to see that and hear their interviews and hear their heart. And let me see. Yeah, and this documentary, as I said before, is so incredibly important in raising awareness. So I'm just super excited that we got to do this and how supernaturally it happened. And it's amazing seeing how one person listened to Jesus and has made such an impact. Now we get to actually spread that impact as well. So I just want to also thank you guys for your support and prayers over our trip and over the documentary. And I know when we got there, all the bags, I went a couple days later, but all the bags with the film stuff was still in, where was it, Zimbabwe? Joburg. Yeah, so the bags got left behind. Some of them did. And so there was a little hiccup there, but all the equipment was safe. All the equipment was okay to use. And we actually got a lot of really good film from that. And just when you thought I talked enough, there's more. So so I went out there, and as many of you guys know, if you don't know, I make music, and I'm in the Christian rap genre. So that's always super fun doing shows and everything. But the kids heard that I rapped, and so they were like, can you perform? So that's me jumping. But they were like, hey, can you please perform? And then I showed them videos and stuff. And every Wednesday they have a worship and prayer night where Tammy, one of the village directors, she gets up and shares a Bible story. They play music on the screen. But But it was super cool because the second Wednesday we were there, so Cody, Sam, Andrew, and Grant had to go home halfway through. But me, Tirsha, Josh, and Jaden stayed. And all the kids put together a talent show for the last Wednesday just for us. And that was so special. But then one of the long-term volunteers, Eddie, had coordinated that Tirsha would share the Bible story and that I would perform. And I was like, do you have a mic and a speaker? He's like, we have a speaker. I don't know about the mic. I was like, okay. Like, I don't know. Like it'll work either way. Pretty much they did find a mic. And I'm actually going to have Tammy play a 40-second video performing one of my songs. Yeah. So, yes. So, I don't know about you, but I can feel the excitement off of that. Like, it was super cool because they didn't know any of the words. Like, that was crazy, too. Where, like, normally I have to kind of depend on people knowing the song or to even engage with it. But that was so exciting, and it was super cool being able to use my passion to instill joy, excitement, and love into these kids 10,000 miles away from here. And so, and it was honestly the most fun I've ever had performing, and like the best crowd ever, if I even want to call it a crowd. Like that was awesome. And I already thank you guys for the documentary, but thank you guys again for always just supporting me over the years. And this has been a cool place where I've been able to grow. Cool is an understatement, but this has been a place where I've been able to have such growth. And I feel like without this growth and without being here and being planted here, I wouldn't be able to be doing things like this. So thank you guys. Yeah.
One really quick thing. Just for anyone who doesn't know, I just want to make sure as you're hearing these different words that we say, you may not know what we're talking about. So Lily of the Valley and Ikatello are two children's villages. They're about 45 minutes away from each other in South Africa. And then Lorenzo is our children's village in Zimbabwe. So we went there first. It was a very quick trip because we were filming the documentary. So it was crazy to go drive all the way, fly into Harare, drive all the way. It was just nuts. All the way in one day, film a day, and then drive all the way back up to Harare. But that's what we're talking about. When we say Lily or Ikatello, those are our children's villages in South Africa, or Lorenzo is in Zimbabwe.
All right, hello guys. I'm Jaden. I'm everyone's family up here. But I'm Erbes and his brother, and then this is my aunt and uncle. So as Caleb said, this was my first time. Second time on the trip. My first time was back in 2007 also, but I was 2 years old, so it didn't quite mean as much. But it was a really special trip to me. I kind of realized a couple things. One, hearing about Sharon, my nana, when I was up there, I could feel the same almost calling that she must have felt from God, and just I can't even explain it, but it was just a really beautiful thing, and I could feel what God was saying about those kids and how he wants us to help them. And also it really hit me realizing that the organization that my grandma started was putting food on the table, like they said, that it was their only support for a long time and still basically is. So that was very I don't know the word for it. It was just amazing to hear and super special and cool to hear that, and that I'm connected to that my family did that, and that I have an inheritance like that to carry that on. And so yeah, I'm really glad about that. And there's one more thing, but I'm completely blanking, and I'll talk about that later. Yeah. No, it's not. I'll get back to it, but yeah, it was a really cool trip. Yeah. So yeah.
Okay, so we've been talking a lot about like the legacy of my grandma, and obviously that's like really cool. And so one thing we got to go to and actually see on this trip was a medical clinic that she had started and fundraised right here through this church. And for me, that was probably one of the coolest things, actually getting to go and see this medical clinic. Obviously, you can see over there. I don't know if you can see. It says commissioned on July something 2009 by Mrs. Sharon Clark, president of the Lily of the Valley Endeavor USA. And so actually getting to be there and see what she had fundraised and what she had built. And she actually got to go stand there and be physically where we were at. And so actually getting to go and see that was so cool. And it really ties into what we've been talking about, legacy. And I think it's really cool as her grandchildren that we were able to go and see what she had started. Also tying into legacy, in 2018 when I went, I got to hang out with a kid named Sebi, and I really connected with him in 2018 and made a really good friendship with him. But then 4 years later, when we went this past summer in 2022, I got to reconnect with him and show him pictures from 2018. And that was really cool. Like, we got to kind of laugh a little bit, like seeing how different we looked. But it was really sweet, just being able to reconnect with him and make that friendship. But I think that also speaks a lot into the legacy of my grandma, but also what she had intended for these mission trips. She had kind of brought mission trips to Limitless and like sending people off to different countries. But what was cool about that is she didn't want to just send people off on mission trips to do VBS and then just leave, but she actually wanted us to go and build relationships there. I think that was kind of one of the main purposes of these trips. And I think what's so cool about that is we got to go and build these relationships with these kids, but we got to show the love of Christ and the hope of Christ that they have. There's a lot of, with these kids and just people there's a lot of hopelessness. Just because of different situations or the past of each kid or testimonies or whatever it may be. And so as, I don't want to say missionaries, I guess, we get to go and show the love of Christ and the hope that they have in Christ. And I think we really got to do that.
Yeah. And talking more about legacy. So the two focuses of the documentary as we were going in, and basically everything we filmed, we wanted to film through the lens of legacy and advocacy. And so one of the things I've written down is that second focus, advocacy. It's like we need an army of advocates because the needs are huge, but we know God is bigger, so we're able to go in and change these things as advocates of heaven. And so what's amazing is overseas, this church, we give 10% off the top, right? 10% off the top goes towards the 3 children's villages. But what's also super cool is a lot of the people in this body give to Love USA outside of just what we give as a church. So I just want to honor you guys real quick. Yeah, thank you guys for that. Yeah, and then on top of that, we get to do tons of hands-on projects like what we just got back from in 2016, 2018, and a lot of those other trips. We also get to do special projects and events. So I know last month, Joel did a birthday party and raised money for Love. And then every year we have our Love dinner that literally puts food on the table, as Jaden was saying. And as a whole, Love USA sends almost $500,000 every year because we have West Coast and East Coast and just what everyone gives. Which is awesome, and amazing things are being done, but we believe God is calling us to multiply our impact and reach. And one of the cool things that, for me, is like, it's so cool it's so touching being able to go on these trips, so cool to be able to do that, but what makes it worth it is actually the one-on-one connection with the kids. So this next picture is a kid, yeah, so cute. I love it so much. And they have those cool little trampolines that are in the ground. So you'll see kids run up to it, jump on it, do like 13 backflips and come off. And it's crazy, but the one-on-one connections with the kids is honestly, for me, what makes it worth it. It what honestly paints an accurate picture of what you're giving towards. So that, the kids make it worth it. I love it so much. And a fun fact, because I saw Rob walk in, so two of the Sundays we missed, we actually watched Rob online, and we wanted to get maximum volume. So we had 4 devices. Took this picture with Josh's phone. You see Rob 4 times. Yeah, we love you, Rob. Thank you. So yeah, that was in the cottage we were at. Fun fact. But what's really cool, to wrap up this little section right here, but one of the things that stuck out to me is, as Christians, we are meant to go out and make disciples. But if we stay within these 4 walls our whole lives, we're missing the point. Because the whole thing is go out. We've been giving out, but going out is such a huge piece of that, where it's not just, oh, hey, yeah, that's a cool verse we get to say. It's like, no, we actually get to go out and make change and make disciples. Yeah.
Just really quickly on, us sitting there like goofballs watching the live stream of Limitless. It was so cool to see, because I remember the week before we left, I had given a message, and Todd walked up to me and he's like, man, God's been totally saying like similar things. And so he's like, I feel like what you shared, I'm just going to basically do a part 2 of. And then I think it was like Wednesday night during our midweek, Israel had the same thing where he was like, exactly what Todd just shared about. Like, I feel like God's been putting on my heart, and he just dove into it in a kind of a different view. And then Rob came up and kind of said something similar, and it was awesome for us to see that when we follow the Holy Spirit, he leads us. Like, he shows up, he speaks to us, and he speaks the same thing to multiple people. And that's what we got to experience on the ground there too. It's always been incredible for me to see the impact that we can have in South Africa, and especially in Zimbabwe, with so little. I remember for years, before Love started supporting Lorenzo in Zimbabwe, the church did first, and still does. And we would, send a few $100 or $1,000 or something like that for us was like, felt like, oh man, I wish we could do more. And the amount that they can do with it is amazing. Azelle, many of you might remember years and years and years ago seeing pictures of the generator that we bought them. And that generator that has now, then later we got a pump, and it's like they're able to pump water to the whole village and school from the river with the pump that we bought them. They're able to take the generator. They ended up buying a grinding mill, so they're able to grind corn to make. In South Africa, it's called putu. I don't remember what it is in Zimbabwe, but it's like their staple meal for them and for the community, with just these little bits that we're able to send. And it's amazing to see that. And that's why we need this army of advocates. That's why we look and we go, okay, God, what are you calling us to do? It's incredible for us to sit up here and talk about all the good that's been done. The fact that kids were dying in a hospice, and then they started being loved and taken care of. They got ARVs to treat their HIV or AIDS if they were infected. They start surviving. Now we've, like Cody mentioned, we have these new things, education, all these things. It's amazing to talk about all of those great things that God has done and he is doing. But I was also struck this year with what there still is to do. We're changing the names of some of the most of the kids, because just to honor their privacy. But there was one boy in particular who was our first sponsor child, and we got to see him, and we got to see his little boy. He now has a little boy. I won't share anything too personal, so you can know he's an adult now. His name is James, so he's there with his little boy, and it's amazing to see, what God's done in his life, but then it's also hard to see where he still needs our support. And even though he's an adult now, we are trying to come up with ways now as a family, as an organization, like how can we continue to support James, because he doesn't have a family to support him. He doesn't have anyone else like we do to go, hey, when you're sick, I'm going to be there for you. I'm going to take care of you. Hey, when you're out of work, I'm going to support you until you find that work. He doesn't have that. And so we're getting to be that for him, but it's the reality check of not everything is perfect. And while I was sitting there with James and his best friend, Spay, they shared with me that there's a girl that I'd gotten to know really well over the years. I'd known her since she was little, and I'd lost touch with her because she had left Lily of the Valley. I think she had started to go through our iLaunch program, which is helping kids once they do graduate, helping them to get a job or get into university if they can. But unfortunately, sometimes it just doesn't work out, and she ended up passing away last year. And I'll be honest, that day I got so discouraged. I was like, what are we doing? Why are we helping these kids to survive for them only to go out and pass away by themselves? And I was so discouraged, and I called Cody that night, and I was just like, I don't know what to do. This is so much. This is so painful. But then God, the way he does, he showed me that Jesus is so close to the brokenhearted. And he's so close. Trevor Hudson, my dad's mentor, always said, everybody sits next to their own pool of tears. And I was reminded of that there is so much struggle, but that Jesus is so close to those who suffer. And that's why he draws us to them. And I'll be honest, in that moment I had a choice. I could get so discouraged that I just can't do this anymore. It's too hard. And I'll be honest, that's what I felt like. I felt like it's too hard. I don't know what to do. But then God turned it around and showed me that out of the thousands of kids who have gone through this, it used to be that the majority were passing away with no one to care for them. And now it's the exception. And we're going to keep working until there's not even the exception. We're going to keep working until every kid has a support and a family their whole lives. We're going to keep working, and we're trying to come up with ways as a board and as a church with how can we support these kids better. And then I was reminded, one of our, Cody and my sponsored children at Icatello, she's this little girl who we've been sponsoring since she was, I think, 9 months old. So you see her there with Shaylee and Braden. And then a few years later, we got to see her. She, it was I think 3 years old, 2 years old, 3 years old. And now this year I was able to be there for her on her birthday. And she turned 7. And it was amazing because she, for their birthdays, the kids get to go out and they get given, I think it's between 100 and 200 Rand, which is like $6 to $12. And they're given that, and they could get to pick something. And she came home, and she was so proud because they'd taken her shopping after church, and she got this little, like a Hot Wheels car that had a thing that would eject it and make it go fast. And she was so excited, and she was running around the village with that one thing. And I just thought, firstly, it hit me because I'm like, my son has like 100 of those, and I stand on them and I curse. But it was amazing to see the contentment and the joy. But then I got to go and I bought her like a little mosaic, and we sat together and we built it, and I gave her some candy, and she would go and sneak it out to her other friends. She had so little, but she would like share with everybody else and share with me first. And I got to see the joy, and then actually the day after we heard about Tondi was the day that we got to share at the midweek service at Icatello, and seeing the joy on those kids, like, that video doesn't even do it justice. Like, we were all sobbing. Like, these kids were so excited and so joyful, and to see the life that they now get to live, where they were brought off the streets, they've been abandoned, they've been abused, a lot of them have been completely orphaned. And now here they are in a family that loves them, is telling them about Jesus, and they get, and I know that because Tondi was at Lily, she knows Jesus. She's in heaven with my mom. And so, as hard as it might be, the truth is that as the army of advocates, we keep working until there are no exceptions.
So on this trip, we learned about a lot of different statistics and just hard things that are going on. And one of them that I wanted to share, we heard from Tammy when we were doing our interview, and we were just asking her questions, and she was talking, and she had mentioned that 90% of the girls that get brought into the villages have been sexually abused. And so for me, like, that broke my heart a lot, and I kind of started to think about it, and it's like, if you get 10 people, you separate 9, that's only 1 left. And that just means the majority of them have been sexually abused. it's kind of difficult living in the States. Like, what can you do about that? Like, realistically, what can we do to help? And I think there's two things that we can do. I think the first thing is that there's so much power in prayer, and also stepping into and standing in our authority that we have in Jesus Christ. I had listened to a podcast a couple weeks ago, and the guy's name's Jonathan Stamper, talked about the difference between bold prayers and weak prayers. And he talked about a lot of people think they have bold prayers because they're loud or they're very exaggerated or whatever it is. But in reality, they have an unbelief in God that he won't show up and won't heal and won't work in impossible situations. And so those end up being weak prayers. But in reality, our bold prayers are where we're actually believing that God can heal, that God can come in situations and work the impossible. And so I think in this situation, something that can seem so impossible, we need to stand in prayer, in bold prayers, and actually believe that he can heal and he can show up. And just kind of going along with that, yes, we need to walk in prayer, but also intercede for the freedom of these kids and healing. And I would love to see all these girls get brought in and none of them have been sexually abused. That would be a miracle, and I believe God can actually do that. We just need to step out in prayer. Another thing I want to talk about is we did hear a lot of crazy stories, and so one of them, Graham was telling us about this story, and a couple weeks before we had gotten there, I believe it was, right? The fire. Last year. There was like a high up leader who got arrested for corruption, and so a bunch of people rioted and started setting fires and looting and all this like crazy stuff, gnarly stuff happening. And so you see the village, it's on like a little hill. It's in a place called Valley of 1,000 Hills, and around the hill, that's where all the fires were, where all the looting was. But there's also like screaming and gunshots, and it was just like chaos. And so you think about that for the kids, everything surrounding that village, the kids were probably terrified, traumatized from a lot of different things just from the screaming alone and the gunshots and everything. But I just want to talk specifically about the fire. So there's a fence around the whole village. If you can see the top left, there's like it's just like different wires, and around those wires there's plastic. And so the fire that was around the village came right up to the village, never passed the fence, but some smoke and fire did go through the fence, just didn't catch onto anything on the other side. And typically you would think that the plastic would burn because of the fire, but the plastic never burnt. And also if the plastic were to have burned, then the fence, deactivate or something like that, so then people could get into the village without like an alarm going off or anything like that. So you kind of get to see the Lord's hand all over that, how he protected the kids even when it kind of seemed like there was no protection. God still protected them when the fire was even just right around the village.
Yeah, there had been threats that people were going to come up and steal in the village, and then this fire that just made a ring protected that. Like no one could come up, and it protected the kids. Yeah.
Another thing this wasn't something I was originally planning to talk about, but something cool about the name Ikatelo, it actually means the chosen ones. Yeah, the chosen ones. And I think that's really cool that like they've named the village to speak into the children's identity. They're the chosen children of God. Like we all are, but them no less than us. And that just shows that God's heart is there for them. So that's just a cool little fun fact. And then continuing with the power of prayer that Josh just talked about, we would go on prayer walks every now and then just around the village and pray, because you kind of realize in a place like in South Africa, there's a lot of stuff that's happened and a lot of spiritual warfare. Something that's kind of intense, kind of in the past, a lot of times there was just a lot of conflict between the races there, and a lot of people turned to witchcraft to defend themselves. But that leaves scars, and there's a lot of spiritual warfare there. So we were walking around praying, and we got to it was this fence. It was the old gate to the village, and Cody just talked about some of the history of it, and that was that. And we started walking away, but I really felt like we had to go and pray there, and it was just this weird pull. So I said something, and we walked back and just started praying, and just we prayed for it and prayed for protection around the village, physically and spiritually, and all that. And then it's crazy, we talked to one of the village managers, Graham, and he had said not too far from there's a witch doctor training facility just right by there. So it was kind of like, whoa. you could tell God said something there, and he wanted us to do something about it. And and then another really cool thing, Josh talked about kind of his relationship with one of the kids and getting to know him. There was one kid there. He's in that picture on the right, and it was really cool because you realize there you're in a village with 40-something kids. It's like a really big family, but there's not a parent. Well, there's house parents for each kid, but it doesn't really get too personal. So a lot of these kids just feel like they're in this big crowd aren't seen. So what was cool with this kid in particular is I just got to become friends with him, and we spent a lot of time together the week we were there, and we just talked, and even we had some Bible studies, and I was able to talk to him about some of the things that they talked about and just kind of help him go deeper with that. But it kind of realized that a lot of these kids need to be seen as individuals, and they need that personal connection with someone. So it was really cool to just help them feel seen, loved, and known. And then, like I said earlier, God really showed me kind of his heart for all the kids there. And I'm sure you've all heard the saying, Lord, break my heart for what breaks yours. And I genuinely think I experienced that, because it's just so hard to see what these kids go through. And I think what hit me is, for us, going there was just it was like an experience. It wasn't exactly, how do I explain it? What we saw, the poverty we saw there, the lives that all the kids lived at that village, it's not the lives we live, but it kind of hit me. It's like, this is their everyday life. It's so different from ours. So it was kind of, I really believe we're called to just keep pouring into there. And then I think we need to keep trying to let each and every one of these kids feel seen and known by us, but also by God, most importantly. And that's all.
Sorry, I wasn't planning on sharing this. Sorry for this. Something you said, something me and Jaden were talking about in the car on the way here, is how like every morning, like when we're out here, it's like the kids get a lot of volunteers, but I think it's rare sometimes to get volunteers that actually want to have something to do with them individually. And what was super cool is every morning, it's like if they saw any glimpse of us being like awake, they'd be at the door, they'd be trying to get in just to hang out with us. And so it's super cool being able to see that. But then also, Jaden, I want to honor you really quick. So sorry, let's flip it. But it was so cool seeing Jaden, and as I'm their older brother, so Jaden, it was super cool seeing how with your first time being there, you weren't like, I wasn't expecting this, but it's not like you were just in the back like, oh wait, I'm too tired, I need to take time now. Every chance you got, you were with the kids playing, and they'd come up and be like, hey Jaden, can you play basketball with us? Easy, boom, go over there. There was no net, no backboard, but it worked. And it was super cool because and the kid that Jaden had brought up that he hung out with a lot, I know one of the things I heard him say was like, thank you so much for teaching me all like these cool tricks and stuff and moves with basketball. And so for Jaden, I just want to honor you really quick. Thank you for your heart and for how you love them. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. Oh, I thought of one more thing. So just another thing I think God really showed me. When I talk about how God showed me his heart for these people, that wasn't a word I got in my head, something I thought of. That was entirely emotional. It was something you can feel. And it's funny because it's hard to come up here and just talk about my experience because it's an emotional thing. You don't exactly process it in your mind. And so I just, I want to pray right now that anyone who wants to, that you can, if you want to know what it's like, that God can show you. And he can show each and every one of you his hearts for these kids. Yeah, right now. Okay. Oh, yeah, I'll pray. Just, dear God, I pray right now that your spirit that's in this room and in all the people here, that it can, any hearts that need it, that want to know it, that you can just show them your love for, one, for each of these individuals, and two, for all the kids there. And that their hearts can be broken for what breaks yours. And they can, that they can know how they can help, but first and foremost, know what they need to help with. Yeah. Amen.
So when we had first started planning this trip, we had a bunch more people going, and we had a lot on our schedule to do, and a lot of things we wanted to accomplish. And slowly it started getting scaled back for different reasons, and some people ended up not being able to go, and different things we wanted to do weren't going to happen. And eventually to the point of are we just not supposed to go on this trip? It felt like there was no grace on this trip. It's just stuff seemed to be falling apart. And it got to the point of we have our film team going. We still need to get this documentary. So Tirsha was just going to go with the boys and the film team and go. And as that plan kind of unfolded, and they saw that they were gonna fly across the South African border up to Harare and drive back down pretty much to the border, 8 hours. No, I really got to go. So
I didn't want to drive in Zimbabwe.
Yeah,
the truth.
It was awesome. But it was just amazing to see. I think I'd do really well in Zimbabwe, to be honest.
Because there's no rules, so he could just drive wherever he wants to.
I'll drive over here.
He's on the sidewalk, and we're okay.
It's great. Actually, it's a lot less stress because you're not having to stay within lines. It's really good. You have to, in order to avoid potholes, you have to. But
Were you
anyways.
He made a few people throw up.
Actually, I wasn't stressed.
Were they stressed?
Were you guys stressed?
No.
They trust me.
Nah.
They trust me. Anyways, I don't know where I was going with that. Anyways, but we saw as this all unfolded what God's purpose actually was. And I felt like we were actually kind of going ahead as scouts to open it up for the next trip, which we're actually planning in 2023, which is going to include a lot of the original things that we were going to bring, that we feel like God was calling us to bring. Because, before talking about where we came from, of these kids getting just the basic needs, their basic needs met, and now where we are now with iLaunch, and actually there's a lot of success with it. Kids are getting internships as chefs and all sorts of really awesome things. Doctors. It's really, really amazing. Where there's been trial and error with a lot of projects that we've done, but what we found is when you actually build into the kids, in their internal infrastructure, that's going to make all the difference. And so as we're out there and seeing what are the needs. Yes, there's still your physical needs and raising money for food and medicine and all that kind of thing, but just realizing, wow, now the next thing is not only have these kids, but also the house moms they've been through so much trauma. And trauma, when you walk through that kind of trauma, it's hard to thrive. And I think many of you in this room can attest to that. Many of us have faced really hard things. Now, put on top of that, just even more hardship in living. That's just a really, really difficult thing to walk through. But the amazing thing is, God here has been actually in our own body has been empowering us to walk other people through this kind of stuff. So we're actually planning next year to bring some of that stuff, the grief recovery, all these different things to actually address things with the soul, address this more of the spiritual things. And we've always prayed, but our focus has been so on like, man, we need these kids to survive. But the crazy thing is now God's showing us a whole nother layer of like the boys were talking about spiritual warfare. Just even the fact that, Jay needed to stop. We need to pray here. We need to pray around this border. I don't know if you guys saw that picture of Icatello, but it's like a light on a hill. Like it literally is on a hill. All these places are in hills, Valley of 1,000 Hills. And it's just bright and it's amazing because these kids actually are going and they are learning who they are and their identity in Christ. It was actually really cool. One day we got to actually have a chance. They were doing a lot of these summer breakouts and doing Bible studies and things like that. And we just like started having the kids pray for each other. And it was just amazing to try and like, okay, we're going to empower you guys to do this. Not like they're not doing that there already, but this is what's happening. So when we come back next year, we're going to actually bring training to the house moms to actually walk these kids through these things and walk them through the traumas that they have experienced in their lives. And not only that, I feel like God's doing something in this church with evangelism. I mean, I feel like for quite a while we've been just kind of like, I don't know, getting assembled. And the amazing thing is like we're ready to go out. And I feel and we've gotten several words over this church that this is going to be a model. This is going to be a model for other places. Not like we take and this is what we do here, and we're gonna just copy this over here. No, not that, but actually that we are going after the whole person. And I feel like that's what we're bringing over to these orphanages now. And it's just super, super exciting. Not sure where I was going with that. With the witch doctor stuff, like the spiritual warfare is real. Graham was telling me this crazy story. He's like, they actually lived, they'd since moved out just pretty close to the village, but they lived in this house in the back of the village. Down the hill is where this witch doctor training center is. And Graham said, he was standing at the sink, like, I don't know, he's doing dishes or whatever. And all of a sudden there's a lot of stuff with fire. There's a lot of fires in South Africa. This fire comes up and is just burning. And he didn't pay it much attention because that's pretty common, like little tiny fires, brush fires. And after it kind of went down, he went outside to kind of just check, see if there was any damage or anything, and nothing was burnt up. So it's weird stuff like that. So there's a very real spiritual realm. And the crazy thing is, like Josh said, we get to actually stand in our authority from there, right? Seated in heavenly places and actually cause things to happen over there, right? Actually speaking out the will of God and actually praying. And it's even more powerful, I think, when we're actually going to get there, set our feet down on the soil and do more praying and actually empower everyone else to be praying and actually stand in their authority, that they don't have to be afraid of this kind of stuff. We don't have to be afraid of this kind of stuff because we actually have been given the authority by Jesus himself, right? Amen. Who is over everything. Amen. Yeah. Yep. I think that's all I was supposed to
say. So when we got there, I don't know when it was, how many days after we got there, but Graham had showed us, done a tour for us around the village, and he kind of just talk to us about like kind of what's going on, sort of what to help with. But there was, I don't know which side it was on, but there was a hill that was there was nothing on it, just brushes and all that stuff. And he was saying that he had this very cool vision to put a baby building right there. And then he started telling us this statistic that 40,000 babies get dumped in the streets or sewers or just kind of anywhere in South Africa, and just with no home, and basically they just get left in the middle of nowhere just to die because they can't do anything on their own, and obviously there's a lot of reasons for why that could happen: rape, teen pregnancies, or just get born into a place where they don't have a home, can't go anywhere safe, and so they just get dumped. And we obviously got to hear Graham and Tammy's heart for these kids, and they kind of told us how we can help and support them. And so I'm going to hand off to Tirsha, and she's going to explain.
I'm super excited about this. We're going to build a baby home, y'all. because he was just saying, Graham was saying he couldn't really take in the little babies into the regular houses because when a house mom already has at Lily 5 or 6 and at Icatello 8 kids, like we got 4. I don't even understand how you can have 8 kids, and these are the house moms. For a lot of them, it's their calling. For some of them, it's just a job. And so Graham was saying he just couldn't bring in little newborns into those houses because now the house moms are going to be up all night with a newborn, and now has to the next morning take care of the other 8 kids. Like it just isn't practical. But he's like, my heart is just for these babies. And so he just feels like God's given him this vision to build a baby home. And as we're standing there, we're like, we can do this. We could totally do this. And if we can, just get, again, Army of Advocates, if we could get the word out, if we can, this documentary is being made by students and the director of Oaks Christian Film School. If we can get the word out to Oaks, if we can get the word out to different film festivals where they take this documentary, if we can start spreading the word, like this is easy for Jesus, like building a baby home, come on, we could totally do it. So I'm just really excited that we get to be part of that. I was also just thinking about, Cody was sharing how we had planned to take a bigger team, and now we totally understand why we weren't ready yet. Because we got to go and see how much has changed over the last few years and how much need there is. And one of the things that became really clear was what Jaden was talking about, of like a lot of these kids, they're in a family of 48, or they're 48 kids and a bunch of house moms and staff. They're in a family at Lily of 100 kids, at Lorenzo of 50 kids, and then 300 in the school. They're in these massive families, and it's beautiful. But they also need the one-on-one. They need to be seen as individuals. They need their individual needs to be heard. And so we spoke a lot with Graham and Tammy about that. And we were like, well, are there some churches we could get to step up? And they're like, we wish, but no. And so we were just kind of heartbroken by that. So we're trying to figure out how can we partner with the churches in South Africa. But then we were like, okay, but if no one will step up right now, can we? Like we are in the world of Zoom now. Would that even be practical? And they love the idea. They said that there's one child who's in particular need, and in order to get him counseling, Tammy, the manager, has to go out, and it takes her like half of a day to get this one child to a counseling appointment. So they just can't do it for everybody else. And so we were like, okay, if we here get a bunch of volunteers, no matter who you are, no matter your age, we could train up a team of people from our church and our surrounding area to, know, okay, how do I and we're not asking for like hardcore counseling or anything. You don't need to have a psychology degree. Just learn, what do these kids need? How can I be a friend? How can I be a mentor to them? And we could set up with each of these kids for the next, leading up to when we go next year in person, but then also beyond that. Even if you could never go, you could have a connection online with a kid, and each week or every 2 weeks or once a month, you get to share with them, this is what God says about you. Let me pray for you. How are you doing this week? That was one of the main things we heard from some of the older students was like, I just feel like there's no one I can really trust. Not that they can't trust, the people there, because they're amazing people, but they're like, they have so much going on. They have so many things, so many different roles they have to fill. I just need someone I can talk to. And we're like, we could do that. And now, so we're going to be setting that up. So if that's something that is interesting to you, 2 things. If you're interested in coming with us next year, be praying about that, because in the next few weeks, we're going to have a information meeting about a in-person trip back to South Africa and then Zimbabwe. And then also, if you're interested in being a mentor, we're going to train you. You're not going to just be thrown in the deep end. But if you're interested in being an online mentor, we would really love to see that happen. One of the things my mom used to say to me, I remember she, I think it was after our second trip there, and she just said she had really struggled one day because she saw how I could, I was young back then, and I could go out and like play in the dirt with the kids and like run around with them and stuff. And she's like, she didn't feel like she had that same connection. She was really struggling. And she's like, Jesus, what's my part in all of this? For goodness sake, her asking that question. But Jesus said to her, he brought to mind that scripture about how when I was thirsty, you gave me something to drink. When I was naked, you clothed me. And she said, I might not be able to do exactly what Tirsha does, but I can do what I do. And I can provide the money to bring a glass of water. You may not be able to go, but you might be able to send money to support a child each month. You may not be able to send money each month, but maybe you could get online and mentor a child. Who knows? And I just want to encourage you all to just be praying about that. What is your drink of water? What can you provide that will make a drastic difference in the lives of these kids?
Yeah. One of the coolest things I felt out there was that just being in that village, it felt like a smaller aspect of heaven on earth. Specifically, every nation, every tribe, every tongue. And let me see. So we had talked about how like the second Wednesday they had us lead. They had me perform. They had Tirsha sing. Oh no, they had Tirsha speak. So Mbali up there, she is one of the kids there. She sang. It was amazing. But what was super cool is they were like, hey, we want to do worship. We normally put up a video on the projector and everything. I was like, hey, I play piano. It's a fun little thing. I play piano. So we did 2 songs. We did one called Come Holy Spirit Utando, which is actually a song that they had played, and we heard it and loved it. And we're actually going to do it today. We're going to teach you today. And we also did What a Beautiful Name. And what was super cool is hearing all these kids sing. It was so much deeper than I could ever have imagined. And it was super cool being in that room, singing to the same God with a group of people that live a completely different life. So Dad, I hope you're fine with me sharing this, but ask for forgiveness, not permission. Oh, I'm sorry, but so pretty much the whole trip, we have so me, Josh, Jaden, and my mom and dad, we have a fam chat, then we have a Tucker 7 with the youngest 2, and then we have a Clack family chat as well. So the amount of pictures and videos that were sent was a lot. And so I sent this video of us worshiping, and my dad had texted when we were actually on the way back. He said, Caleb, I just now watched the video clip from the worship night. I had somehow missed it. That was so beautiful, and I had tears in my eyes listening to all those voices. It's a beautiful picture of heaven, people from every tribe, tongue, and nation worshiping God. So I actually have a bit of a video for this. Yeah, it was kind of crazy because we did that, and then Tirsha spoke, and then I performed, and coming right off the stage, as Tirsha said earlier, we were bawling, we were crying, it was crazy, but I felt this feeling. At the time, I couldn't put into words what it was, but pretty much I stepped off the stage, and it was just this heavy moment, and a couple nights ago, I was talking with my dad, and one of the things he said is that watching the video, it's literally heaven on earth. Every tribe, every tongue, every nation, all of that. It's it was super cool. So that actually really put into words what I was feeling. And as Jaden was saying earlier, it's a lot of the trip that a lot of what you go through in the trip is feelings. But somehow sometimes it's hard to put them into words. And so if I can just put that into words, it's heaven on earth. And one of the things that also, another part of that feeling I felt, I think why I was also kind of tearing up too, was I was able to use the gift of music that was planted in my heart by my Nana to perform for children that wouldn't be here if it weren't for her heart and vision. And so as I got off this stage, as I was prepping some of this last night, I felt this like sentence, it's two legacies meeting. And I was like, whoa, that's crazy. Like because I know like my Nana started teaching me piano when I was 5. And thank you guys for like putting up for when I started playing in here, because I was playing with one hand. Like I looked at a video, it was like playing with one hand, like didn't feel comfortable with the left. Actually crossed over at one point too. It was, I'll have to show that video sometime, I'm sorry. So from that stage, like thank you guys for always, again, supporting me through that. And just putting up with it. It's like, hey, who's this 15-year-old playing with one hand? Like, I don't know. So it was super cool being able to do that and play keys. And it was actually pretty funny because I had never played that song before. But I just looked up the 4 chords and was like, okay, I got it. Let's go. Like, so I got to do that. And it was super cool being able to do that. And then also see the legacy on the other hand of these kids that are here that would not be here at all. Those buildings wouldn't be there. They wouldn't be upkept like that. The food wouldn't be there. The kids wouldn't be there if it weren't for Nana and her vision and her heart through that. And so, yeah, it was just, I really felt like it was just these two legacies meeting amongst other legacies. It's like those two legacies that my grandma has combining as heaven and earth worship together.
Thank you all for coming and hearing what we had to say. One thing I would really love to do is give a huge shout out to Azelle, who runs Lorenzo, one of the most amazing people I've ever met. Yeah, she's awesome. She's got some funny stories too.
Christo, her husband, has the most epic stories ever.
Oh, he does crazy stuff, but she's a total smuggler. She's like Han Solo. It's awesome. So awesome. I love hearing her stories. But anyways, like just seeing her heart and the years and years and years she's poured into actually making a place for the kids of Lorenzo. Incredible. Out in the middle of nowhere. It's awesome.
And thank you, Charlene, for partnering us.
Charlene. Yes. Thank you, Charlene. And also a huge shout out to Tammy and Graham, another amazing couple who run Icatello and have just recently taken over Lily the Valley. And we've had a lot of managers and people that have, been overseeing the villages, and there's been a turnover, which is to be expected. But it's not often that you get people there that you really see their hearts for the kids. And you really see, like they were pretty successful up in the UK, but they followed the call that God put on their hearts to come back to South Africa and do what they're doing, and it's absolutely incredible. And I'm just so thankful for them and what they're doing, and we wouldn't be able to do what we're doing without them either. You need somebody on the ground that has that heart for these kids. And also thank you to all of you, because you've supported love and you've supported what we've been doing for years and years and years and years. And from the bottom of our hearts, we thank you so much for supporting us. And it really, really means a lot. Thank you. Because this trip was so rushed and so, it put together so fast, we actually weren't even able to meet all our costs. So if you're interested in giving to this previous trip, there's an envelope in your bulletin if you feel so led to give. We're going to go into a time of worship right now, and we're actually going to sing that song, Untando, and Tirsha's going to explain what the words mean, but you get to learn a little bit of Zulu today, and it's really exciting. And I think that, instead of kind of seeing it as it's fun little words and stuff, like I encourage you, like think of it like Caleb just said, like every tribe, every tongue, every nation. That's God's desire. That's God's heart. For everyone to know him. For everyone to know his goodness. And the beautiful thing that we actually get to cross those borders, and we actually get to step into other people's lives and actually show them the love of Jesus.